Welcome to another episode of You're in Charge. I'm your host, Glenn Pasch, and this is the podcast where we discuss topics, strategies, tactics to help you become the leader that you want to be, whether you're brand new to leadership or you're an experienced leader who's just looking to refine your skills. Each week we're here. And today's conversation that I'm having today with you is based on one of our listeners reaching out to me. They had watched one of the early episodes, which was, what should a manager do in their first 30 days? And their comment was, I love this conversation, but how do I present my plan to leadership? And I thought that was really good. And they said, I need to know if I'm presenting almost as if what topic should be on the slides. So that's what we're going to talk about today. Going to help you build your presentation to present to your leadership. All right, let's dive into today's episode. All right. I'm so pleased that an audience member is reaching out. I encourage all the listeners, if you have a topic that you want a question, a topic or a question you want answered, or maybe there's a guest you think would be great for me to interview, this is what this podcast is. It's as much as of yours as it is mine. My goal is here to help you build the skills, because most people who are put in a management position, a lot of times there's not a lot of training. A lot of training for the frontline workers, but when you get into management, a lot of times there is a lack of training, and that's why I built this podcast. So this person asked me, and I have my notes here so I don't, and for those of you watching, if you see me read, it's because I don't want to skip over what I think is really important about presenting, because this person said, I just got promoted. I met with my leadership, and they asked me to put together a plan for the next 30 days. What am I going to do? What do I think I'm going to accomplish? And I need help with what to say. So here's what we're going to talk about. So first off, I think it's very important to make sure that it may happen in the interview process or in this meeting once you're hired, is understanding a few key things. One is, what are the metrics they're looking to improve? What happened to the person who was in your role previously, right? There's a completely different situation. If I took over a team because the person who was in the previous position got promoted, well, I'm taking over a team that may be running fairly well, and yes, I want to improve it, versus someone who I'm taking over for who was removed because of poor performance. So I need to really understand what leadership is expecting, what metrics they're looking for to gauge as success. That'll help frame what I'm presenting, because you don't want to come up with a whole presentation, deliver it, and then leaders go, well, that's not really what we wanted. So again, the first thing you need to do is make sure that you're on the same page with leadership about what their goals are, what the expectation is, and what your timeline is to show these results. Because the way I feel that someone should take over a team, there is time that you need to inspect and dive in and get a baseline of what's going on before you make tweaks and adjustments. But if someone's asking you, I need this turned around in 30 days and I need XYZ to happen in 30 days, your process might change a little bit. But let's go on the assumption that you're taking over a team and you have some runway for them to say, great, get your feet wet, give me your battle plan, and then over the next 2 or 3 months, these are the metrics, this is the improvement we want to see. Okay, so first off, we want to make sure that I build relationships. That's one of the key. So one of the first things I want to do is build relationships up, moving up above me, right, working up, and then also down with my team. I want to make sure that they understand who I am. I want them to meet me. I want to greet them. I want to know who they are, how long they've been there. Is there anyone on that team who was looking for the role that I took over? In some situations, you might be a past member of that team who got promoted. And again, that's a completely different situation where one minute I was sitting next to someone and now I'm leading them. And there are definitely episodes and content on this channel that focuses all on those separate topics, and I'll link some of them in the show notes so you can go back and watch them as well. But if they know me, it's one thing, but I also have to still build up the trust and credibility that I deserve this position. But if I'm brought in from the outside, there is going to be some hesitation and guard up that, do you really know what you're doing? Who are you? I have to win them over. So number one, I'd be saying to my leaders, one of the first things I'm going to do is build relationships with this team and understand what's going on. The next thing so slide 2, or the next point on this, it would be the organization. I need to understand where this team fits. I have to present to them that I do understand that here's where my team fits in the ecosystem of the organization. I understand what my output, where it goes next, and how it impacts another team. If there's input coming into my team, so if I'm running a sales team, or I'm running a business development center, or I'm running a service department, or whatever department you're running, who's generating opportunities that I have to deal with, or if I'm dealing with these opportunities, who takes over when I set an appointment, or when they're finished with me, where do they go, and what's that transition? So I need to understand how both of these organizations or departments that are coming to me and going out from me, I need to understand all of that, and I need to map that out and explain it to them, so that if for some reason I'm not 100% correct, leadership can explain that to me and say, no, you missed this one point, right? I want to be able to leave this meeting with leadership that they're comfortable with me. I'm comfortable with them. I'm also comfortable on the mission that I'm going to embark on. Now, third, I want to set next expectations around communication. What does that mean? This I think is a very important topic to discuss with leadership. One is, how am I communicating with you as I'm on your team? How am I communicating up? What is your expectation? Is it a weekly report? Is it a face-to-face meeting? Is it a daily meeting? What do I need in that report? What are you looking for in that report? Again, clarity in that communication, in that structure, and what you're expecting from me, because often there's a disconnect. I assume you want me to meet once a week. I assume you want this report. And if it's not what they want, it's friction, it's a disconnect. Let's get that solved right away. Same thing going downstream. I want to establish expectations for performance, right? What are you expecting, leader, for my team down below? I need to understand what you're looking for so I can communicate it to them. Then I have to explain to them, over this next 30 days, I'm going to communicate with the team where we currently are, what we're doing well, what we're not doing well, how we're going to improve, what is leadership expecting from us, what is our day-to-day going to look at, what is my role, how am I going to, there's a lot of information that I have to communicate down. And so bullet pointing that, or explaining to leadership, this is what I'm going to be doing over the next 30 days. Again, if I'm missing something, or if there was something important that the previous leader did not do, but they were supposed to do it, I need to know that from leadership up above. So that's sort of your third one. Now, the next one would be assessing the challenges and the opportunities, right? So that's the next topic that I would be presenting. Again, some of this is confirming what leadership explained to you, why I'm in this position now. Was it of the failure of the previous leader? Is it consistency of that person got promoted and we're doing well, but we're still expecting you to improve performance, or we're going to grow the department? I want to confirm everything that I understand in terms of expectations and these challenges or these opportunities. I want to make sure we're very clear. Same thing. I want to be able to communicate them down. Now I know there's a challenge. Here's my plan for inspecting. Here's my plan to go see how to fix this. Is this a process issue? Is this an execution level? Is it hanging on to people that shouldn't be here anymore? Is it lack of staffing? I don't know. I know what the challenge is. I know what you've put out in front of me. I know what the opportunity is. Now I have to go do this. Now I may say to them in this presentation, I don't have the answers to this yet, but give me a week, I will have answers to this. I will provide this in our weekly report, in our meeting, whatever that previous discussion was of how the communication, how does leadership want to know what you're doing, where you are. Again, we're talking about connection. This type of process, and I'm so glad you asked this question, it is often overlooked. When you just go dive into the team and you start, and there's a disconnect with management, not knowing if you're the right person, but also the fault is on management, not really clarifying what the expectations are, but you're doing the right thing by asking them these questions to be prepared. So your first month is really an effective use of your time. Okay. Now, the next is learning the business, right? So that's another piece to all of this, is learning the business. It's one thing if you are taking over a team that you were part of, you understand this. There's still pieces to the business that you would not know as a frontline worker, that now you're elevated to someone else's team. So I have to learn what those expectations. In those meetings, I'm going to understand metrics and maybe profit and growth in other departments that I never would have understood as a frontline. If I'm coming in from the outside, there is going to be a learning curve. Just because you were brought in to, say, run a sales team doesn't mean you understand that product or the business or the history of the company or the industry itself. So there is a learning curve. So again, telling them that this is what I'm going to be doing, here's how I'm going to do it. Also asking them for resources or time to sit and have conversations to help you accelerate your knowledge of the business. So that's sort of the framework of what the first part, what I would say is, here's how I'm getting prepared for what I'm going to do in the first 30 days. Now, the second piece to this, what leadership is waiting for, is, well, what type of results am I going to see in 30 days? What am I going to see? So the first thing is team engagement and morale. Now that can be a little bit wishy-washy and not as specific as saying, we've increased sales, but I'm going to be able to report back to you that I have had meetings with all of the team members. I asked them about challenges. Here's the feedback they have. I started sitting with the individuals as they're doing their job. I'm watching the process we have in place. I'm already seeing areas where maybe they're not following the process. Maybe I don't even have a process, which is why I'm in the position. So I've been sitting with the frontline people to watch how their job is. I'm starting to put a process together, but I'm engaging with the team. We're having meetings every day where there weren't meetings any time before. Maybe the morale is better because we're having a lunch, we're having this, we're doing other things for the team. And I can come back and say to you, it seems the team is more energized. It seems that I'm starting to gain trust with them because I'm rolling up my sleeves and I'm diving in with them versus sitting behind a desk and lecturing, which maybe the previous person who wasn't successful in their job started working with people on the front lines and then ended up sitting behind a desk and just talking down to people or preaching to people. That's not inspiring success. The next part would be, again, reporting back to what I will be able, after 30 days, I'm going to be able to tell you the strengths of our team. I'm going to tell you the weakness of the team. I'm going to tell you areas where I think we're failing. I'm going to tell you areas where we're successful. I'm going to show you the data to back up both of these conversation points. So it's not just I'm going to hang out and have a good time with people. That inspection, that engagement with the team is showing me who needs what help, what topics, where we as a team are struggling if we want to accomplish this goal, where it's just an execution problem, whatever it is. I'm going to come back to you and I'm going to talk to you about the team's performance, who they are. Maybe it's staffing. We need more people. Maybe we're overstaffed. We don't need the people. I don't know. You do. After 30 days, but that's something that leadership would be very interested in, because then the next piece of it is, and here's what I'm going to do with that information, because now that I know this, maybe the next 30 days is going to be implementation of my strategies, and we should see an increase in performance, in increase in productivity. But I need to gain that time. If you're allowed this time, this is a great use of your time in the first 30 days to help them. And I think by just being with your team, inspecting your team, asking questions, I think performance will pop up. just because you're probably more involved than the other person. And even if it's a well-run team, the fact that you're continuing that and you're just a new set of eyes, because a lot of times if you're running a team for a year or 2 years, you stop seeing things. I, as a consultant, go in, I might say something and the manager of that team will say, I've been saying that for the last 6 months. They're not listening. That's because they heard it so many times, they don't hear it anymore. And all it takes is another voice to come in and say the same thing. And they go, oh, that's why we should do this. And I know that may be frustrating for a manager if you're listening, but it is the reality of the situation. Next is understanding how all of this research that you've done, all of this, how it aligns with what the objective. So saying, I understand the strengths and weaknesses. I now have a strategy to build a better process. I have a plan to be able to implement this and train people, and that will allow us to obtain the objectives that we want. I think we can get 50% there in the next 30 days, and I think we'll be up to speed in 60 days. That's what leadership wants to see. Here's my overview of understanding what my job is and what is the expectations of leadership is. And now I'm talking about, I've inspected my team. By the end of 30 days, I'll know what my team is. I'll know who we have, what we can do with this team, what I have to do with this team in order to achieve the objectives. Now, I think if you stopped there for leadership, I think they're going to be fine. They're going to say, that is great. Off you go. What I want you to think about, though, is that next phase. Now you're in there in that first 30 days. And as you go to 60 and 90 days, there's a few things you as that manager, you as that leader need to be aware of. People resist change. We had a whole episode on change and what you need to do and why people resist change. But most people resist change. They like doing things the way they are, whether they're working or not. It's just, repetition, and people don't like change. Just understand you are going to get resistance of change, especially the fact that you're coaching people. Even if they're doing the same things you're coaching, people are going to look at you and go, why are you doing this? The other person didn't do this. They might think they're getting fired. So again, understand that you have to be prepared to explain why you're doing this, why it's going to benefit them, more importantly, how you're going to interact, what your day-to-day is. Maybe that previous manager never trained. You're going to say, we have daily meetings. Well, we never had daily meetings before. Okay, but we're going to have daily meetings every day, and here's the things we're going to talk about every single day. And so you need to be prepared for this. Okay. They still may grumble. They may still think that, well, you're new and you'll start it for 30 days or 10 days or 2 weeks, and then it goes back to the way it was. Just stay committed to your plan every single day. Don't worry about a month from now. Focus on today. But be prepared for change. The next thing is be careful of overwhelming people with too much information. Don't try to change so many things. Start with the basics. If you've done your inspection, you can see the weaknesses, you can see the strengths. Double down on the strengths. Complement why they're successful. Focus on why they're successful, those actions, and get them repeating them. And maybe change one thing at a time. Start with the meeting and just be consistent with that. Be consistent with sitting next to people and asking questions and complimenting and helping and guiding. One thing at a time. If you try to come in and change everything, people will fight you on everything. Or if every day is something new, everything is changing, you'll lose people. Maybe break it down by weeks. Here's the topic or thing that we're going to focus on this week. And then next week, we're still going to talk about this, but we're going to add this. My idea, I always call it stacking. You have to be careful as a leader that if you focus on this one topic and the next week you only focus on that new topic and you stop talking about this topic that you did in week one, they will stop focusing on week one. And then you're going to come back in 3 or 4 weeks and go, whatever happened to that? Stack it on top. Doesn't mean it has to be your whole focus, but maybe it's just a touch point in every single meeting. We constantly keep talking about it and we add on to everything. So we stack behaviors. The last thing in this section that you need to be aware of is balancing short and long-term goals. If you're trying to improve performance, let's say your team sells 50 and you're trying to get to 80, you're not going to get to 80 in a month, maybe 2 months, maybe 3 months, who knows? Stair step. If I'm at 50, can we get to 55? Can we get to 60? Maybe if at 60, now we're at 63 and we move up. Short-term gains. keep our eye always talking about the long-term game, but we have to take steps to get there. Because if you try to offer them a goal that they think is unattainable, it will defeat them. They will not do what they need to do. But if we can incrementally move up, this week we want to add on 3 sales. Next week we want to add 3 more sales. And we're constantly moving up in a manageable way. Doesn't mean that you excuse poor performance or lack of effort. And sometimes you're going to win. Sometimes you're going to take a step back, but you have to constantly keep focusing on the goals, focus on the activities that are going to help your team progress. And then lastly, it is, as I said earlier, keeping your leaders involved in the communication of where you're at. Don't be afraid to ask for their help. I'm struggling here. We're a little behind. Ask for help. Remember, you're on someone's team. They should be mentoring you as well, right? So in summary, this was a phenomenal question, and asking for how to present this. I hope this makes sense to you, but walk through all of these stages. Each one is a slide. Each one is a topic. And when you understand those topics and you understand how to interact with your leadership, get that information, then you can plan, be more efficient, more effective in your strategy, taking the time to understand your team. Start to get them to understand who you are and what your expectations are. Make sure you're consistent. Make sure you don't change too many things at one time. Keep your eye on the long-term goal. Praise any progress. And always remember, if you have to reprimand or talk to somebody about lack of performance, we take them away. Praise in public, right? Discipline in private, right? That's what you want to do. And I think then you'll be able to see your progress. It won't be so overwhelming to you because you've mapped it all out. You understand where you're going. You understand what is expected. And that, I hope, will put you in a position to be successful. So I hope you found value in that. Keep those questions coming. I love answering what you're looking for. It's why I built this podcast, as I said earlier, to help you become the leader that you want. So, as we always say at the end of the episodes, I want to first thank the folks here at Black Swallowtail Studios for engineering this. Dylan's on the board today. Appreciate everything he's doing. To Connor Pasch, who will be editing this episode, making it look wonderful as always. I want to thank you, the listeners. I know, and those of you watching, I know there's a lot of places for you to consume content, but the fact that you spent time with me today means the world. Don't forget to share this out. I'm sure there's someone in your network that could benefit from this. If you're watching on YouTube, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Click that notification button so you get alerted every time we drop a new episode. We do that weekly. And if you're listening on a podcast platform, don't forget to leave us a great review. That helps, spread the word. As I say at the end of every episode, I appreciate you. Being a leader, well, you're in charge of that, right? You're in charge of yourself. So as you grow, as you become that leader, just remember that leadership is not a title. It's not a word. It's what you do to help your team become better. It's not motivating them, but it's inspiring them. It's activating them to change behaviors to drive success. And don't forget that you need to do that for yourself. So thanks again. I look forward to seeing you next week, and keep moving forward.